Hello, boys and girls. This is your Uncle Jimby and my pal Jeffrey.
Hey, hi, kids! Boy, are we gonna have fun today! Let's see, I've got several things planned.
Well, now, Jeffrey.
Yeah?
Why don't we let it be a big surprise, shall we?
Well, all right. Hey, what's first then?
Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Once upon a time there were 3 bears who lived in a cozy little cottage in the woods. The Papa Bear, the Mama Bear, and the Baby Bear. In this bear household, everyone shared in the daily chores, and on this day it was Papa Bear's turn to prepare the family's breakfast. Papa Bear began cooking while Mama Bear and Baby Bear set the table. They were all excited because they were having their favorite breakfast, porridge. A rich, hearty porridge. Finally, the porridge was done and on the table. Although they were eager to eat, they knew that the porridge was much too hot. So Mama Bear suggested that they take a walk in the woods while the porridge cooled. And that's exactly what they did. Now, while they were gone, a little girl with long blonde curls, appropriately named Goldilocks, came upon the 3 bears' house while skipping and frolicking through the forest. Goldilocks, always wanting to make new friends, decided to knock on the door. Now, normally, Goldilocks, a very mannerly little girl, would not have been so inconsiderate as to enter someone's home without being invited. But today her curiosity got the best of her. So when no one answered, she slowly opened the door and walked into the little house. The first thing she saw was the table, set with the 3 bowls of piping hot porridge. Being hungry from her walk in the forest, she decided to have a taste, a very small taste. First she tasted Papa Bear's porridge, but it was too hot. Then she tasted Mama Bear's porridge, but it was too cold. But when she tasted Baby Bear's porridge, she found it to be just right, and it was so delicious she gobbled up the whole bowl. Now Goldilocks then went into the living room and saw 3 chairs, one for each of the 3 bears. She tried to jump up onto Papa Bear's chair, but it was too tall. She climbed onto Mama Bear's lovely old rocker, but there was no one there to push her. Finally, she sat in the Baby Bear's chair, which was perfect, but for the fact that it promptly broke into a million pieces. Oh, dear. Well, Goldilocks then crept upstairs to the 3 bears' bedroom, where, of course, she found 3 tidy beds. She stretched out on Papa Bear's bed, but it was much too hard. She found Mama Bear's bed to be much too soft. But as you might have guessed already, Baby Bear's bed was just right, and was so comfortable she immediately fell fast asleep. Just about this time, the 3 bears returned from their walk, and went quickly to the kitchen to eat their porridge. Papa Bear noticed that there was a spoon in his bowl, and said in his Papa Bear voice, "Somebody has been eating my porridge." Mama Bear looked into her bowl and said, "Somebody's been eating my porridge as well." Then Baby Bear cried,
"Somebody's been eating my porridge too, and they've eaten it all up."
Realizing that someone had come into their house, they began to look around them. First they noticed the chairs. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," said Papa Bear. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair as well," said Mama Bear. Then Baby Bear squealed,
"Somebody's been sitting in my chair and has broken it all to pieces."
The 3 bears then went upstairs to the bedroom. "Somebody's been lying in my bed," said Papa Bear. "Somebody's been lying in my bed as well," said Mama Bear.
Hey, somebody's been lying in my bed too, and here she is.
Hearing Baby Bear's cries, Goldilocks awoke with a start and jumped out of bed. Goldilocks felt very badly about what she had done, and she hoped the bears could find it in their hearts to forgive her. She offered to help fix Baby Bear's chair and promised she would never again enter anyone's house unless invited. Well, the kindly bears did in fact forgive Goldilocks. Goldilocks kept her promise and helped fix the chair, and in the end, they all became fast friends. In fact, they got along so well that they decided to go on a picnic in the woods. For as we all know, bears, and little girls for that matter, just love picnics.
Oh boy, a picnic! Hey, can I come along? I love picnics! Hey, I heard there's wild animals out there. I'll tell you about it. Oh, it goes something like this. If you go down in the woods today, you're in for a big surprise. If you go down in the woods today, you'd better go in disguise. For every bear that ever there was will gather there for certain, because today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic. Oh, hey, Rabbit.
Yeah?
Go on, give it a go.
No.
One more verse, give it your best.
Every teddy bear whose been good is sure of a treat today. There's lots of marvelous things to eat and wonderful games to play. Beneath the trees where nobody sees, they hide and seek as long as they please, 'cause that's the way the teddy bears have their picnic.
Rock out, bunnies.
Picnic time for teddy bears. The little teddy bears are having a lovely time today. Watch them, catch them unawares, and see them picnic on their holiday. See them gaily gad about. They love to play and shout. They never have any cares. At 6 o'clock, their mommies and daddies will take them home to bed, because they're tired little teddy bears.
Oh, gosh, another story. Well, here goes. This one will be your favorite, I bet. The Lion and the Mouse. Now, one night, a long, long time ago, in a clearing deep in the jungle, the mighty jungle, a majestic lion slept ever so soundly, his grand head resting peacefully on his ample paws. On this evening, the jungle was very quiet, except for the lion's snoring and the scurrying of 2 young mice who were searching the underbrush for food. The little mouse, having very keen ears, heard the lion long before they came upon the clearing. "Oh, my!" exclaimed Bertram, the youngest of the 2. "That sounds like a lion to me, and unless we wish to be his breakfast, I suggest we go elsewhere to look for our food." "Nonsense," said Orville, who had an adventurous streak in him, and was already peeking his head into the clearing. "Look, he's sound asleep and can't harm us." Bertram wasn't so sure, but before he could say another word, Orville had crept ever so close to the sleeping cat. "I've heard lions sleep with one eye open, and—" "Oh, nonsense," interrupted Orville. "Anyone can plainly see that this lion has both of his eyes shut and cannot see us. I'm going to climb on him." Bertram knew that Orville had made up his mind, so he cried, "Well, if you must, then I suggest you stay clear of his nose. Lions have very sensitive noses." "Nonsense," said Orville, as he reached the lion's head. "Watch me. I'm going to slide down his nose." And of course, he did. And of course, Bertram's worst fears were realized as well. The lion awoke, and before Orville could say, "Nonsense," the lion had trapped him with his great paws. "Well, what have we here?" roared the lion. "Has someone thoughtfully brought me my morning's breakfast?" "Oh, please, please, Mr. Lion, sir, spare me. I would not make much of a meal for such a grand lion as yourself." Bertram, covering his eyes, couldn't bear to watch. The lion, being in a kindly mood, could not help noticing how the little mouse was trembling, and replied, "Well, you certainly are a young little mouse, so I believe I will spare you this time." To the surprise and relief of both Bertram and Orville, the lion gently placed the frightened little mouse on the ground and roared. "Oh, off with you now, you small mouse, and let a body get some sleep." "You won't regret this kind deed," cried Orville, and at that he scampered into the underbrush to meet his very shaken little friend Bertram. Well, life continued on as usual in the jungle. Lions sleeping, mice scurrying, you know, that sort of thing. Until one day, the two little mice heard a terrible ruckus nearby. It sounded to Orville like the roar of the lion they had encountered that evening not long ago. Bertram pleaded with his friend to hurry from there as quickly as possible, but naturally, Orville had other ideas. "I think the lion is in some trouble, Bertram," insisted Orville, who already was running toward the commotion. "Orville, would it not be a better idea—" "Oh, nonsense," interrupted Orville. "That kindly lion spared my life, and I'm going to help him." Bertram once again heard the all-too-familiar determination in his friend's voice that meant no amount of discussion would change his mind. So, against his better judgment, he chased after his intrepid pal. When they reached the lion, they found him trapped in a hunter's net. The more the lion attempted to free himself, the more hopelessly entangled he became, and the more fearfully he roared. Orville ran right up to the struggling lion and shouted in his ear, "Mr. Lion, sir, it's me, the little mouse you freed. Lie still, and this time I shall free you." The lion, realizing his predicament, did as the mouse requested, although he did not see how such a small creature could possibly help him. Orville set immediately to the task of gnawing the ropes with his sharp little teeth. Before long, the meshes of the net fell away, and the noble lion was able to spring to his feet once again free. Bertram cheered his friend's courage, but nevertheless kept a safe distance from the great beast. "I had no idea my kindness would reap such a rich reward, my little friend, for you truly have saved my life," said the grateful lion. Well now, who would have thought that a lion and a tiny mouse, ordinarily most unlikely companions, would become the best of pals? But in fact, boys and girls, that is just exactly what happened. From that day on, the mighty lion, Orville, and would you believe it, even Bertram, at a safe distance of course, could be seen traveling hither and yon throughout the jungle. Although, it must be told, the lion didn't care all that much for Orville sitting on his nose.
In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. In the jungle, the quiet jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. Near the village, the peaceful village, the lion sleeps tonight. Near the village, the quiet village, the lion sleeps Hush, my darling, don't fear, my darling, the lion sleeps tonight. Hush, my darling, don't fear, my darling, the lion sleeps tonight.
Boy, this lion sure sleeps a lot, Bertram. Hey, look, there's an elephant. Let's go play with him. Oh, Orville. Come on, Bertram. He looks friendly. Orville, I just got used to the lion. Oh, Bertram, come on. All right. Here we go again. Well, boys and girls, who out there enjoys a good circus?
Hey, you know, I do. I love the circus.
Well,
yeah.
that's
hey,
wonderful,
Some
Jeffrey.
of my best
And-
friends are in the circus.
Well, that's very nice,
Let's see,
but...
there was that guy who always swallowed knives.
No, I think
And
that
then,
was a sword.
There was the lady that used to hang from her hair. She's bald now.
Well, they have
And,
ways of treating that, Jeffrey.
There was the fire eater.
Yes.
And the
Well,
man
you know,
who
Jeffrey,
was all the
I
big
think it might be
lions
nice
and
if we just
tigers
found
and
you a
things.
chair in
I
the
think
other
he had
room
a
and...
snail in his act too. I'm not
Come on,
sure.
it's right over
And
here.
then,
Just follow me,
let's see.
Jeffrey.
We had the
Here we are.
horse
There's
race,
the door.
And then there was all those
Well, we'll be
clowns that
seeing
came
you
in
now.
with little clowns about the size of a bread box. You know, there was about 110 clowns came. I really like that part. And then there's the,
Oh, my gosh. Well, anyway, I'm sure you're going to like this story. It's all about a circus train, and it's called, appropriately enough, The Circus Train Comes to Town. Once upon a time, not long ago, there was a small town nestled against a lovely mountainside. Not surprisingly, this town was called Hillville. It was a very quiet place, except for the weekly arrival of the valley train, for that was when the townspeople received all of their needed food and supplies, not to mention an occasional visitor or two. These days were always special occasions, but one day each year, was the most special of all, for it was the day that the train brought the circus to town, and everyone in town loved the circus, especially the children. One day, not long before the circus was due to arrive, the train came puffing into town with its weekly deliveries. As it came screeching to a halt at the Hillville station, the engineer jumped down from the train and went directly inside to see Mr. Cromwell, the station manager. After a brief greeting in Mr. Cromwell's office, the engineer, a man who had little time for idle chatter, got straight to the point. "Mr. Cromwell, I'm afraid I will not be able to bring the circus to Hillville this year. No, certainly not. These days I have far too many important deliveries to make, and I cannot waste my time with a circus." Well, as you can imagine, this came as quite a shock to Mr. Cromwell. He knew how very disappointed everyone would be. "Couldn't one of the other trains pull the circus to town?" he asked hopefully. "Well, you will just have to take that up with them. But I'm certain they're just as busy as I am. Well, good day, Mr. Cromwell." Unfortunately, the grouchy engineer was right. All of the other trains had too many important deliveries to make and couldn't possibly deliver the circus to Hillville, or any of the other towns for that matter. Oh, gosh and begobbers. You can bet Mr. Cromwell, a very kindly man, didn't sleep a wink that night. He knew how the children looked forward to the circus, what with the clowns, the wild animals, the acrobats, and of course their most favorite thing of all, cotton candy. He just had to do something. So, when the delivery train arrived the following week, Mr. Cromwell climbed aboard and headed down the mountainside to visit his dear old friend, Cristobal. Now, Cristobal was not just a man with a funny name. No, indeed. Cristobal was the leader of the circus, and a famous magician to boot. Mr. Cromwell knew that together they would find a solution to this dilemma. When they reached the valley station, Mr. Cromwell got off the train and walked towards the circus tents in hopes of finding Cristobal. On his way, he noticed an old train sitting forlornly off in the distance. The rusty engine had cracked wheels and a bent smokestack, and the cars were in very, very sad shape. Just then, his old friend Cristobal suddenly appeared. Cristobal often suddenly appeared. He was a very tall man with long white hair and a big bushy mustache. He wore brightly colored trousers with wide suspenders and a large red bow tie. He noticed that Mr. Cromwell was gazing wistfully at the old train. "You know, Crommy," he always called him Crommy, "that old wreck was once our circus train. At one time it carried us far and wide throughout the countryside. There was never anything more important to this train than the circus. But as you can see, she is in such bad repair that we can no longer use her." Mr. Cromwell thought differently, and immediately began to formulate a plan. Cristobal, of course, knew that the circus was to be cancelled, and he also knew that Crommy had something up his sleeve, though Mr. Cromwell could never hide things up his sleeves quite as well as Cristobal. "All right, then, out with it. What is it, Crommy?" inquired Cristobal. "Well, why don't we send a message to all of the towns in the valley and on the mountainside, asking for help to fix the train? Then the circus would have its own train and could travel wherever and whenever it pleased. Of course, we would need many materials and, well, if a few people from each town would volunteer to help, maybe, just maybe, we could have the train up and running in time for the annual circus tour." Cristobal feared that his kind-hearted friend was being just a bit too optimistic, but agreed they should at least give the plan a try. They got right to work, and sent messages to all the towns and villages explaining their plan. Before long, they had more than enough supplies. Each town sent materials from their own factories and workshops. One town sent paint, another windows for the passenger cars, while yet another sent tools. And then, much to the delight of Mr. Cromwell and the surprise of Christabel, people began arriving to lend a hand. There were welders and carpenters and painters, ironworkers. Well, in fact, no matter what the task, there was someone there who knew how to do it. Even the circus performers helped. There was plenty of work for everyone. Fixing the cracked wheels, repairing the animals' cages, straightening the smokestack, and of course, the engine was just covered with rust. In fact, the list seemed endless. But because there were so many people helping, the job did not take nearly as long as they had expected. In just a few days of hard work, they were ready to paint the little train. After much discussion, they all decided that orange was just the right color, and it was. The train looked quite nice, but something was missing. Then Christabel suggested that each one of the children might paint a flower on the engine or the little cars, and they did. And now the train was very handsome indeed. Everyone stood back and looked with great pride at their handiwork. Even the train herself seemed pleased. Someone suggested that they name her Orange Blossom, and in fact, they did. Well, everyone returned to their towns and went about preparing for their annual festivities. Hillville was the first stop on the circus tour, so Mr. Cromwell and the townspeople got right to work. The children made many colorful banners and blew up hundreds of brightly colored balloons, all the while dreaming of cotton candy. Well, in no time at all, the big day arrived. Everyone in Hillville gathered in the town square, which looked very festive, what with all the colorful banners and balloons and such. They were all anxiously awaiting the circus train. All of a sudden, they spotted Orange Blossom chugging down the track into town with her very important delivery, the circus. Oh my, the children were so excited, they began to cheer. Look yonder coming down that railroad track. Look yonder coming down that railroad track. Well, it's the Orange Blossom Special. Well, as Mr. Cromwell expected, the circus was a huge success. The children applauded with glee at the lion tamer and the circus elephants, laughed at the funny clown and the juggler, and held their breath for the daring acrobats. Cristobal was particularly inspired that day and performed his most amazing magic tricks ever. There was plenty of delicious food, meaning, of course, cotton candy, and in general, everyone had a grand time. Finally, it came time for the circus animals and performers to get back on the train and head down the mountainside to visit the towns in the valley. The children and their families all waved goodbye as the circus was leaving, and although the day was almost over, they were happy knowing that Orange Blossom would be bringing the circus back to Hillville next year. And perhaps more importantly, they felt that they had learned an important lesson, and that was that wonderful things can and often do happen when people chip in and work together.
Hey! Uncle Jimby!
Oh my,
Hey, can anyone hear me?
who could that be?
Hey, open the door!
Coming!
Uncle Jimby!
Why, Jeffrey, what can I do for you?
Oh, haven't you heard the news? It's Humpty Dumpty! He's had a terrible accident!
Oh dear, does anyone know what happened?
Humpty Dumpty, he was an egg. Jumbo, grade A, I won't pull your leg. Bigger than most eggs, but not very tall. Had a lot of trouble climbing up on the wall.
Humpty Dumpty,
He's an egg.
Good egg.
Humpty Dumpty,
Humpty. Mr. Dumpty.
When he got there, he felt pretty good. All the scenery looked as it should. Wanting to do more, he took a big chance. Slipped and took a dive when he started to dance.
Humpty Dumpty,
He's an egg.
Good egg.
Humpty Dumpty,
Humpty. Mr. Dumpty.
The king sent horses, all he could find, to carry stout men, courageous and kind. It's more than a breakfast they had to attend. They got to work so quickly 'cause the egg was their friend.
Humpty Dumpty,
He's an egg.
Good egg.
Humpty Dumpty,
Humpty. Mr. Dumpty.
Humpty Dumpty,
Humpty. Mr. Dumpty.
Humpty Dumpty,
He's an egg.
Good egg.
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses, all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again.
Humpty Dumpty,
He's an egg.
Good egg.
Humpty Dumpty,
Humpty. Mr. Dumpty.
Humpty Dumpty,
Good egg.
Humpty Dumpty,
He's an egg.
Well, my goodness, that's just about all for now. But before we go, we have one more little surprise. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Wynken, Blynken, and Nod one night sailed off in a wooden shoe sailed on a river of crystal light into a sea of dew. Where are you going, and what do you wish? The old moon asked the three. We have come to fish for the herring fish that live in this beautiful sea. Nets of silver and gold have we, said Wynken, Blynken, and Nod. The old moon laughed and sang a song as they rocked in the wooden shoe, and the wind that sped them all night long ruffled the waves of dew. The little stars were the herring fish that lived in that beautiful sea. Now cast your nets wherever you wish, never afeard are we, so cried the stars to the fishermen three, Wynken, Blynken, and Nod. All night long their nets they threw to the stars in the twinkling foam. Then down from the skies came the wooden shoe, bringing the fishermen home. 'Twas all so pretty a sail it seemed, as if it could not be. And some folks thought 'twas a dream they'd dreamed of sailing that beautiful sea. But I shall name you the fishermen three, Wynken, Blynken, and Nod. Wynken and Blynken are two little eyes, and Nod is a little head. And the wooden shoe that sailed the skies is a wee one's trundle bed. So shut your eyes while Mother sings of wonderful sights that be, and you shall see the beautiful things as you rock in the misty sea, where the old shoe rocked the fishermen three, Wynken, Blynken, and Nod.